So, a lot of the teams that didn't make playoffs, it's done. It's done for them. So we're going to start with LCS, the teams that didn't make playoffs. CLG, Clutch, Optic, and 100 Thieves. We already kind of talked about 100 Thieves. We'll talk about them later. He wanted to go over Clutch, so...
I did, I guess.
All right, so there's a lot of variables we could go through. But let's give him a little bit of praise. Because at the first part of the year, after finishing, 8th place in last summer split, right? They finished 8th in summer, but they got to go to the regional qualifier because of their fourth place finish in the spring split. At least you can commend them on opening up their checkbook in order to really try to win.
I mean,
at least they tried.
You can't deny that they did pick moderately smart players to an extent.
On paper, it looked pretty good.
They picked moderately mechanical players. Pretty much everywhere, they're all volatile. But the problem is, which was pretty much moderately predictable towards the beginning of the half of the season, they didn't have a shot caller. Like, we expected maybe Huni to take the lead on that, but as we've seen, he actually was 100% the shot caller this season. Look at their beginning half of the season when they rotated. Pretty much all of it was around the pressure that Lyra would help Huni attempt to get in lane, and then they try and invade the top half quadrant of the jungle with Huni and Lyra, and that lost them pretty much all the games at the beginning half of the season. I think that I was expecting a little bit better from this team. I really did think they had what it took to be a moderate. At the very least, a playoff team, but
I thought they had what Echo Fox had for 2018 spring. They had literally almost the exact same players, except a few upgrades here and there. I mean, Adrian is probably better than Vulcan, but I mean, outside of that, it's not really that big a difference in that aspect alone. We learned that this split of the LCS 2v2 top and jungle was really, really strong, and their 2v2s were terrible. Huni and Lyra's. They were absolutely terrible when they first started.
I think it obviously Lyra started picking it back up when he stopped playing around Huni because Huni was just a he was just such a mess.
He was such a what's that word? Detriment? That's the word, right? Detriment.
He was a big problem for this team in terms of just how their ability to make it towards the later half without having a gigantic
a lead?
No, the opposite.
He's a gigantic liability.
I would say he was putting the team in the point where they had a gigantic deficit in terms of gold consistently because he was losing the laning phase, making poor decisions with Lyra, getting them both killed, which would lead into lost jungle pressure on top of the fact obviously now he's losing the lane too much to CS. There's just way too much going on in this team. No one could have predicted the way Huni was the one thing that we expected to be decent on this team. Even with last split, he's had way too many good splits in a row besides that to really take away from him.
Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of getting into that Afromu type of situation where he had so many good splits. You don't want to say he's absolutely done, but it's like, where do you really go from here? He's been on a downward trajectory for 2 splits, the same number as Afromu has. So
I would say that honestly, the first thing I would do would be to find a shot caller. I think the biggest problem as to why Huni's playing poorly is because he's not only attempting to be an aggressive laner, but he's also attempting to be a shot caller.
He's not.
He's not a shot caller, and I think he should stick to just laning itself. One pickup I would suggest, which would be a decent pickup, would be to pick up Meteos or Dardoch. I think both of those would be good pickups for this team because they need an aggressive jungler, which is something that Lyra does, but he doesn't shot call at the same time. He doesn't make beyond making aggressive plays in the beginning of the half. All he does is essentially supplement his team after that. I would like to see somebody take the lead, and I want take over. What's it called?
This is the thing. They wanted to build around Lyra coming into this year. That was the thing. Why? That's what Apollo and Hakuo said. They said they were let go because they want to build a new team around Lyra. So them kicking Lyra for the person they want to build around is not gonna necessarily look good on you as an org. It's
who cares? I mean, it obviously is not that. Again, there's nothing wrong with Lyra. I think he's playing fine. I think it'd be a good pickup for Echo Fox. I'm not gonna lie.
Another Korean jungler.
Nah, Lyra's definitely an upgrade over Rush right now.
That's not a lot, but it's better.
It's a pretty substantial upgrade right now. Lyra played really well towards the later half of the split, but I just think that they need
Rush
a shot caller.
Kindred ultimate.
They need a shot caller in some position. Maybe a shot caller, maybe a support shot caller, maybe a jungle shot caller. Somewhere they need one though, because they obviously, even when they won the lanes, they didn't know how to close out the game.
Yeah, that 10,000 gold lead against 100 Thieves, that was the biggest throw all season.
Yeah, and against one of the worst teams.
It was the worst team. There's no it. They were not that good, but that was terrible. They were all winning, and they threw. Like, I don't like to use the term throw, but if that ever is the case, that you point out to that game, and that's a throw.
And I do want to talk like mid lane. I think Demonte played really well throughout the entire season. He had a slump towards the later few weeks, but I don't think it was that bad. I still think he's one of the best mid laners in the league. If anybody wants to talk about his inconsistencies, it's kind of stupid. He was definitely the most consistent, or one of the most consistent players on this team. I think that, again, if you look at stats-wise, maybe not, but I think that's kind of hard to keep up stats when you start losing more. They had more losses in the second half of the split than they did in the first.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a big reasoning as to why he had less wins. I mean, had worse stats. And also, on top of the fact, I think a lot of people like to point out the big problems that he had in terms of just the big, like, the things that happen in front of you. Like, we saw the Game of the Crown where he got solo killed, which I honestly think that's a really volatile lane. I think if you mess up in the slightest, Zoe is going to kill you, because that's just what Zoe does. I don't want to take too much credit because he played the rest of the game fine after that.
I think people really only point to that game, though. Other than that, he's played pretty decent.
Fine. Anybody who says that he played poorly,
like Bjergsen and Jensen have had those bad games before, like, you know, where they've gotten beaten in lane.
I think the top two players on this team are without a doubt. Everybody knows who it is.
So this is the thing. Now we're going to the bot lane, and
Vulcan,
you got a lot of flag early on in the split for this.
I'm not gonna take away. Like, Piglet had a lot of games where he would get caught out, and he did that. But I do think it's obvious that he's the better player in this lane. Vulcan, essentially, what would happen is he had a bunch of good engages towards the mid game to late game, but it was too late at that point. I think that he makes too many drastic mistakes in the laning phase and kind of throws away the games. Like, it happens consistently at this point.
I could see them going into the next split just trying Cody Sun and Vulcan. That's the thing.
Why would they do that? What would be the change?
Maybe, like, it's not necessarily him as a problem. It's like you just need a change. It's not like the direction Cody Sun could bring to the team.
That's just stupid, though.
Like, he brings
nothing that they're missing. All he does is just change a new ADC. That does not do anything for this team. That doesn't change. Change for no reason other than to change something is not smart.
But sometimes that works.
Well, sometimes it works, but sometimes people win the lottery.
Well, you didn't. This time
I didn't. But I'm planning on it. But what I'm saying is, I don't like to take those variables into consideration when they're not thought out right. Like, but Cody Sun would not bring to what this team is missing.
Maybe he instead of like team fighting,
he's
looked good in team fights. People like to reference the Tristana. Other than that, he's pretty good.
Wait, I mean, if we're gonna talk about team fights, I mean, Piglet is literally not lacking in that. He's been the leader in almost every single one of the team fights in terms of damage every single time this year.
But what if he's not bringing a certain level of direction to the team? Like,
what does Cody Sun bring?
He's not an import slot. So
what direction does he bring? Neither is Piglet.
Oh yeah, he's not.
He's not. What direction? Tell me what direction Cody Sun can bring.
Maybe the way that they can play lane is a lot different and more effective for the overall team.
He's a passive laner who tries to scale towards the later half of the game, and I don't think that's what this team needs. I think this team does not need a passive laner. Like, I don't think Piglet played extremely well, but again, he had a lot of good games. I think he was, again, out of the lowest gold share in the entire league for the ADCs. He had one of the highest damages in the league. I think he was in the top 10. Around there somewhere. But I think that, again, Piglet did play well this year. I think he had a lot of mistakes that people like to point out, because the mistakes you make as an ADC do actually kind of stand out a little bit more, because
your team kind of funnels all those resources into you.
That literally is not true for Piglet.
For his case.
Piglet literally got no resources. He literally gave up all of the resources in the entire league.
He was like, Lyra, just go mid and top.
The reason I don't want to give Demonte too much credit, though, is because, again, he had the most resources on his team. Him and Lyra, actually. Huni had the lowest on the entire team.
I mean, he was getting resources until they realized that they're like...
Yeah, but Huni had one of the lowest in the entire league. He not even just top lane.
He lost in jungle proximity.
Like, I'm going to be honest, I think that Demonte got funneled the resources. He did, and that was obviously the biggest case as to why they... I think what they should be doing now is, again, a difference in funnel the resources towards Piglet. I think the gold difference the CS the difference in laning phase, just alone in Piglet, is definitely way in his favor, yet he has one of the lowest gold shares. Which means that even though he's winning the lane pretty substantially, he's not getting he's not getting any gold past laning phase. They're essentially funneling it all into Demonte. So I think that's the biggest reason as to why I think this team is kind of struggling, is because they're not funneling resources into the correct part.
There's no shot calling. The resource management is terrible. I think maybe you switch out Vulcan for Stunt.
You know what? I don't think, again, I like Vulcan. I think that maybe, does Stunt shot call?
He did for their academy team, and that got him to the
I
playoffs.
think that's something you might want to try out.
At least you could try it out, at least. But there has been a little tiny rumor that I know it's focused on it too long. Golden Glue going to what about Golden Glue kind of switching around?
Maybe Golden Glue shot. I don't care who comes as long as they shot call.
Like Sneaky said, Golden Glue does give a lot of information when they did play.
Giving information is not a shot caller. Giving information is feeding information into a shot caller.
Yeah,
that's what they do. I think a good pickup, a shot calling anything would be a good pickup because literally I don't think
bring back high.
The players themselves, I think a lot of them get laning leads besides Huni being terrible. If Huni plays better, I'm fine with it.
I think Lyra just needs to go to the bot lane more often because
I think I'd like to. I mean, again, they need a new shot caller so Huni can stop it, and I think he'll play slightly better. If Huni plays better, which I think is possible, I think this team starts playing. I think this team takes off a bit because their laning phase is literally only a problem in top lane. Even the jungle gets a pretty substantial amount of gold. I mean, a pretty substantial amount of gold lead. Like, I mean, it's not a gold lead kind of thing. They're getting.
He gets a lot of his leads through like stealing camps and doing. He makes smart jungle decisions.
The problem is literally the difference in top. He's making terrible. Like, remember the Vlad? It was Vlad into Malphite.
I don't want to talk about that. Oh god.
Who was he? Who were they playing?
I remember watching him play against Broken Blade. Broken Blade clapped him.
It was Dokla, right?
Oh god, I don't remember that.
Oh, it was Dokla. I think it was Dokla.
It was Dokla. Dokla was playing Scion.
No, I'm talking about Vlad into Malphite. Somebody played that, and I think it was a weaker. Was it solo?
It was
I can't remember exactly what player it was, but this was the exact matchup, and he kept ulting them out of the Vlad.
Oh, I remember now.
And it was a Nocturne Lyra, and Lyra tried to play around him still. I think that's a big problem. Again,
they gave him Malphite so he doesn't feed and he can't ult properly.
He ults the wrong player because he was able to. He's gonna Sangyun pool pretty fast. He's gonna be able to get out of that. I think stop playing around topside. I think they need to get a shot caller in some lane. Anybody getting replaced, even Piglet getting replaced or Demonte is fine if you get a shot calling mid lane player.
I think maybe if you want to just try a small switch that doesn't really like impact anything, switch out their academy top laner for Huni. Maybe that does the same thing it did for Rush. It gives them a little bit of a fire.
I don't want anybody to switch out. I mean, maybe that happens, but I don't want anybody to switch out until they make an educated decision on this player is a moderately decent shot.
Like this person has a good champion pool. He has good map awareness. Maybe he brings a little bit of more information. And like it doesn't matter about literally losing the lane. It matters about being competent enough to do good with what you have.
I really want maybe a shot calling jungler. Again, I think that getting somebody just for the fact to replace, I don't like that concept. Maybe it works out sometimes, but I mean, again, I really want to see this team succeed because I think they have potential.
Because the biggest liability technically for them is top.
It's top and jungle when he plays around him.
Because Huni really shouldn't be this bad. I don't even know what's going on. I mean, everybody has one of those bad splits where they go through it. But this is like atrocious. Like he's not even really playing the game. He's just like loading in and losing.
We obviously know that's not his capabilities because the very first game of the season, he literally was one of the best. Like it was an incredibly good series.
He had like 3 good games like the whole split. It was like 8 out of 18 games. He had like probably 3 good ones.
It was every time he got Cass.
Or every time he got Rumble. First game. Or every time he got Rumble, I think, right?
Oh yeah, very first game was Rumble.
Yeah, and
I think it probably should. Like again, I'd like to see it. A step up on his part.
I still don't think Piglet should be losing to ADCs like Wild Turtle and frickin' Arrow.
He can't win. Like again, we know why he lost that lane.
Yeah, I mean, but like you're them as a bot lane, which should be upper middle pack bot lane, solid middle pack bot lane, shouldn't really be losing to like Apollo, Hakuho, Wild Turtle, and JJ. You know, like if that is a lane where they should be. Honestly, I thought they were gonna win most of the time.
They
lost to Keith and Diamond.
A lot of people like to rag on it. I think a lot of people either watch the highlights or read stats, and that's where they get most of their knowledge from, looking at KDAs. And I don't like that. And I think you also look at, instead of just the entire play in general, you watch the plays that happen. You see the plays that somebody gets caught out instead of all of the play beforehand, and that's why a lot of people come down to their decision based off these major. The major situations that happen in games are not indicative of how good players are.
That's a big word.
It's not.
But yeah, I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a special thing for the teams that did make playoffs. There's a lot going on. I mean, I had a weird, stupid idea. It was like maybe Huhi could go to Clutch. Now, if they're replacing Demonte, maybe who he is a good fit for them. Maybe he's able to play the style that he was able to play. Because remember, when he was on COG alone by himself, he did do pretty well. So theoretically, maybe 100 Thieves playstyle just didn't fit him. Maybe he needs a more of an aggressive style team. And Lira and Huni are still the same. It's the same. You had 4 Koreans on the same team. That'd be ridiculous. So I think I'm saying that's an idea. It's not the best fit because considering he looked terrible, but I think that the player that he is could fit in with him. Like he's kind of a nice guy. He brings that little bit of brings that nice guy attitude. Like they're all a little volatile. They're probably a little bit weak mentally. But, maybe he can kind of bring him in the right way.
As much as I'd want Golden Glue, it really looks like he's going to 100 Thieves.
I don't think that's the right decision.
It's a good pickup for them.
For them, yeah, but I don't think it's going to pan out in the long run.
We'll see. I mean, I think they have more problems than just that. But all around, you got anything else?
Yeah, Clutch is done. For Summer Split, let's hope they switch out. Please switch out the top laner. Good lord. Mm-hmm. Shot calling, you got to change something because I don't know what you're going to change, but you have to change something because it did not work this time around, and they don't want to be probably 9th place again.
Also, I would like to, if anybody's read to the very end, I don't know what you mean by timestamps because I don't know what you want me to timestamp. Different
like maybe talk about when we're talking about specific players.
We didn't.
I don't really want to do that.
I guess I can't. I'll try and see.
We'll work on it. I'll say.
I'll look through it today, and I'll see. And if somebody can give me a heads up at the very end, I would like.
What specific timestamps?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'd like you to tell me if these are the type of timestamps because we've had somebody say it a few times already.
Yeah, like that. I mean, theoretically, I do like the the title, the thumbnail, and stuff like that. And I mean, he wants to do timestamps, so he can do it if you want.
What do you mean you do titles and what's it called?
I do all the work. I'm just kidding. I'm trying to make you sound like you do nothing. Wait, is it over?
I haven't stopped it.
Oh, yeah. The next team will pick out another team that's in the bot that they make playoffs.
See you later.